So we're going to go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Aloni, and I'm with Schneps Media. Schneps Media is the largest local media company in New York Metro, and we publish over 70 newspapers, magazines, websites, webinars, podcasts, and events throughout Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx, Manhattan, Westchester, Long Island, and Philadelphia. Tonight, we're thrilled to be able to bring you a group of experts to talk about Home Buying 101. And I'd like to welcome Neil, Anahi, and Veronica. Thank you for being here tonight. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about each of them. So let me share with you about Veronica Ferrero. She is an Assistant Vice President and Community Lending Coordinator for Emigrant Mortgage, Inc., a wholly owned subsidiary of Emigrant Bank, which has been serving the credit and banking needs of the New York community for more than 169 years. Ms. Ferrero's primary role at Emigrant Mortgage Company is to originate residential mortgages and assist clients purchasing and refinancing 1 to 4 family homes, cooperative, and condominium properties. Additionally, Veronica originates small balance commercial mixed-use mortgage transactions for first mortgage financing through the bank's subsidiary, Emigrant Funding Corporation, including multifamily apartment houses, mixed-use buildings, retail strips, and office properties. Emigrant can also provide small business administration, the SBA loans, including 504 programs and 7A loans. Veronica greatly enjoys helping first-time home buyers and understanding the landscape of mortgage products and working with them on the way to home ownership status. These mortgage products include SONYMA, low to moderate income incentives for qualified applicants, Home Ready, and various Fannie Mae products. Veronica has a great capacity to carefully listen to the client's needs and assist them in identifying which product might work best for their particular needs. In addition to conventional mortgage products, Veronica is able to originate Emigrant's portfolio, bank-owned products, offering creative solutions and niche products unique to the industry. These products can provide a solution to various financing situations facing homeowners, investors, foreign national, and commercial clients. Welcome, Veronica. Quite an expert. We're lucky to have you here with us tonight. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Anahi DeCanio. She is with Douglas Elliman and a commercial and investment real estate certified with military location and corporate relocation. Anahi is a full-time residential and commercial real estate advisor with Douglas Elliman and an award-winning published artist born in Montevideo, Uruguay. She arrived in New York as a child knowing only how to say okay. A quintessential lemonade stand kid entrepreneur, she purchased her first investment 2-family house at the age of 22 and a second property at 24. She's convinced real estate is in her DNA. Anahi became a financial advisor in her early 20s and had a career spanning over 2 decades. Her Wall Street background serves to guide and advise her real estate clients. Active in the business community, Anahi works with corporations and organizations to provide real estate-related services as part of employee and member benefit packages. She's a member of the Worldwide Employee Relocation Council and Society for Human Resource Management. She lived in South America, New York City, Long Island, Westchester, Florida, and Queens. So she knows what it takes to move and relocate a family. Welcome, Anahi. And last but certainly not least, we are pleased to have Neil Garfinkel, who is the managing partner of Abrams, Garfinkel, Margolis, Bergson, LLP, a full-service law firm he co-founded in 1995. He serves as the partner in charge of the real estate and banking practices of AGMB, which has offices in New York and California. Neil serves as broker counsel to the Real Estate Board of New York, where he hosts the Real Estate Board of New York Legal Line and authors the Real Estate Board of New York Question of the Week. Additionally, he and AGMB serve as counsel to the Empire State Mortgage Bankers Association and the New York State Mortgage Broker Association. Mr. Garfinkel serves on the New York State Board of Real Estate after being appointed by Governor Andrew Cuomo. He's also certified with the New York State Department of State as an instructor of real estate courses, and he enjoys teaching and speaking about a variety of real estate and banking topics. He's frequently quoted in publications and media outlets nationwide. Welcome to our illustrious panel of guests tonight. I'm thrilled to be able to talk with each of you. So let's dive right in. Veronica, how are you this evening?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here, and thanks everybody for spending a few minutes of your day to be educated and to learn so much. The three of us have so much experience, and we are so glad to share it with you guys.
Wonderful, wonderful. So Veronica, what is the most important things for a first-time home buyer to know about the process of home buying?
So the first thing is planning. I mean, we plan when we're going to get married. Okay, well, what kind of dress? The same thing is for mortgages. You got to plan. You got to make sure that you're prepared. Even if you're not ready to buy this property at this part of your life, if it's 6 months down the road or a year down the road, you got to be planning this. And part of the plan is budgeting. Plan of the budgeting is checking your credit, making sure that you're working with somebody every step of the way. And again, you may be not ready to buy a property now, but this is a very important step. It's almost half of the steps that you have to take, which is planning and budgeting and checking your credit, and to see how much assets you're going to need. So there's so many little steps that involve in applying for a mortgage or buying a home, but planning and budgeting is the most important thing. And the preparedness, because again, if there is something that needs to be fixed in your credit, that's part of the preparedness. If you need to save a little bit more money, that's part of the preparedness. So there is a few steps, and planning is all about getting ready for that home.
That's great advice, and luckily we're here because we're going to learn about how to plan.
Absolutely.
I want to address kind of the elephant in the room. Obviously, COVID is on everybody's mind, and I'd like to go to each of you for you to share with me how COVID has impacted the buying process. Veronica, you were just speaking, so would you kick us off with that?
Sure. So as part of the mortgage process, unfortunately, COVID has taken a lot of, different situations. So for example, in the employment, if you have been furloughed, or unfortunately, if you've gone from full-time to part-time. So all these questions I always ask up front to see if how COVID has affected you. And basically, it could be affected as a W-2 employee or self-employed. A lot of self-employed have been affected greater than somebody that is getting a salary. So documentation, unfortunately, is required to be updated more often due to COVID. We want to make sure that, again, throughout the process of the mortgage, you haven't been impacted, your income hasn't been impacted due to COVID. Because that employment can change at any minute, because your company may be suffering and you may be having to get some discount in some part-time situation instead of a full-time situation. So yes, unfortunately, COVID continues to be an issue with our processing, but again, preparedness and knowing exactly what to do, and when to do, what kind of documentation is needed. It's not that difficult to navigate through COVID.
Thank you. Thank you for telling us about that. Again, prepare.
Yes.
Neil, can you share with me on your end how COVID has impacted the buying process?
Sure. So first, thank you so much to Schneps. Thank you, Veronica. I really appreciate the opportunity to join you tonight. Home buying is very much a physical experience. And so what do I mean by that? There's a lot of physicality associated with going and looking at property. And then we are what's called an attorney state. So I'm going to address the closing piece real quickly, which is closings a lot of time could be a real big party. Everyone comes to the closing. Real estate brokers, the bankers, the attorneys, the family, everyone comes. Obviously, that can't be done anymore. And so things like a walkthrough before the closing, very difficult to arrange. I think we've gotten better at handling those situations, but the idea of everyone going to the closing now, it's not happening. We're seeing a seller's attorney might go and have a power of attorney on behalf of the sellers. Maybe only one buyer goes with their attorney. So there are, and I guess we'll talk a little bit more about who's going to be at the closing, so we could talk about that. So the physicality associated with touching and feeling the property and all the things that we do to get to the closing table and the closing table has really changed because of the need for social distancing and being careful and so on.
It's good to go in kind of knowing that that's going to be the case and
Absolutely.
that's the new normal. Thank you. Anahi, what about you? How has COVID impacted the buying process on your end?
Well, certainly it was a big change. Well, first of all, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you to Emigrant and Veronica and to Schneps for putting this together. And of course, for the audience to, to take time out of their day to be here with us. I think it was many aha moments for so many of us, and no less in real estate. I think that safety became an issue for many people, according to recent data from research. 73% of people that chose to move safety was a major concern. So plans that might have been 2 or 3 years down the road became now. So people had to prepare quickly. So preparation, as both Neil and Veronica referred to, is absolute key. But I think the change also became being able to adapt and adjust to use technology, having home tours that were virtual home tours, literally sometimes the homeowner holding up their phone, walking through their home to show a buyer the properties because people could not enter into the properties. And I think also the list of amenities became a little different. I think people started to look at their home in a different way. We all need workspace if that's the position we're in, or if we had to have extra room for children, for families that have children, and outdoor space. So I think it changed the perspective a little bit. There's even a thing called Zoom rooms where people are looking for a space where they can do what we're doing tonight.
Good point. Good point. Thank you for that. So as we're taking your advice and thinking about planning, one of the things that's so important is having the right team around you. So Neil, can you share with us who are the professionals that a home buyer needs on their team, and what kind of questions should they be asking? I mean, number one, they should be interviewing these individuals. So what are the kinds of questions that they should be asking these professionals?
So the first thing I think that I want to address is the importance of, regardless of whether it's a seller's marketplace, a buyer's marketplace, the importance of being prepared. Veronica, was very clear about that, right? But the ability to be prepared and act quickly is so important in this process. So you don't want to wait to start talking about having an inspector for the property, who's going to do your mortgage, who's going to represent you when you have an accepted offer. You want to start the process with your team in place. So as I mentioned, for example, having the name of an inspector who can inspect the property. So once you have your accepted offer, you can send someone in. Having your attorney, having your mortgage person, having your real estate broker, all of those. And for those of us who are professionals, this is what we do. And the people that you have are those professionals. We all work together. So we work as a team, getting that purchaser ready, getting the seller ready, whatever the case may be, so that you can act quickly. In New York, parties aren't bound until they sign a contract. And so either party can walk away. So again, you want to be able to act quickly. You also want to be able to ask questions. You shouldn't be expected as the consumer to know everything about the process. In fact, we know everything about the process. So when it comes to asking those questions, obviously, how much do you charge? How do you charge? Those are important questions. Don't be afraid to ask those questions. But then what's your experience? Are you available to help me in this process the whole way through? What do I mean by that? Well, I'll pick up a retainer at the point where we have to start doing our work. But if you want to look for 6 months and call me and have questions, that's fine. I'm happy to be that advisor for you for my piece. So again, experience, really, really important. And then this is a very emotional process. And and I'll talk a little bit about that later as well. but you have to gel with the person. You have to, so interview them, and you're going to be spending a lot of time, a lot of emotional time, a lot of financial time together. Make sure that this person is someone that you feel comfortable with. And if you're not, then move on to the next one. So look for recommendations from the professionals. If you're working with Anahi first, then I'm sure she's going to have some good attorneys. If you're working with Veronica, again, so ask for those recommendations, ask your family members, but make sure that you're working with someone who does this. This is what they do.
That's really good advice. Thank you. Anahi, how does one determine if they're financially prepared, if they're ready?
Well, I'm a big believer in being organized, being prepared, and sort of having a master list. So you want to be able to take a look at your expenses, at your checking account, your credit card bill, something that sometimes there's only 50% of Americans actually have a budget. So you're not alone if you don't have one. But if you are considering purchasing a home, this is definitely the time to do it. To take a look at where is your money going. Sometimes we can have small items on credit cards that add up to monies that we don't review on a regular basis, and all of a sudden it's a surprise when we actually dig in a little deeper. And then, of course, as Veronica mentioned, making sure that there are no issues with your credit report or things like that. And one of the things that I recommend, especially for somebody who's been a renter or who lives with family, is to actually do a budget for what it would be like after they purchase a home. Once they review their budget, once they speak to a mortgage professional so that they know where they stand, everything is going forward, create a budget after you purchase your home and know that you're going to have things that you've never thought about before. You may have to pay to have your garbage removed or lawn maintenance. You really should have an emergency fund to be sure that if anything happens to the home, that you'll be prepared to take care of it. So once all of that is done, definitely be ready to get your documentation ready and speak to a reputable, professional, knowledgeable lender like Veronica that will guide you and let you know what your price point is. So you remove all the stressors before you actually physically start looking.
That's a really good point, Veronica. How important is it to start talking with the mortgage professional in the beginning of the process, and why?
So a mortgage professional is going to be that person that is going to be holding your hand every step of the way. There's some companies that you call up and you get one person and then you call back the next time you get somebody else. That's not who you need. You need somebody that is going to answer your questions from the beginning and it's going to be there till you close. This is a team job, so the same way that real estate professional such as Anahi is going to be there, is going to listen to you, is going to listen to your priorities. And your attorney is going to be so important. That person is going to be sitting with you throughout the process and at the closing. So I do use a 10-step, that basically helps you a little bit. And first of all, if you're going to be checking your credit scores, that's something that you want to do up front. You don't want any surprises when you get to the mortgage application. Figure out how much you want to afford, and because I can qualify you, but that's ultimate. You're the one that's going to pay for the mortgage, and you want to make sure that you're going to, like Anahi said, leave some room for repairs, because you're buying a home or a co-op or a condo, and there will things that need you to be repaired. An emergency fund, you definitely want to have that emergency fund. You want to find the right real estate, again, that team job, that teamwork. You want to get pre-approved. Pre-approved is like, the thermometer of everything. They basically tells you, okay, yes, you're ready now, or you will be ready, or you need to tweak this. So that pre-approval is like your MRI of your economy. It tells you exactly what you need to do or what you should be doing, how to get ready. Start looking at homes, get your comfort level. Do you like this area? Homes now are different. You know, we're looking for office space. We're looking for Anahi Zoom rooms. Basically, it's so funny because now maybe you're going to be working full-time from home and not basically full-time at the office. So a lot of things have changed, and maybe for the better in many cases. Start looking at the home, start getting your comfort level, where to go on the weekends, go on during the week. Make sure that you like the area, make sure that is what it fits your budget. The home inspection is very important, you know, so that's going to be important. You know, what does a home inspection mean? The insurance, what kind of insurance do you need? All these questions have to be answered before you even apply for the mortgage, so you know what you're getting into. And then what's going to happen at the closing day? You know, who's going to be there? Who has to go there? Do I have to be there? So all these questions are very important, you know, so those 10 steps are, you know, those are going to be the success of how good you're going to get that mortgage, and that hopefully that closing date that will be successful.
Those 10 steps are really valuable to think about. It really touches upon so many of the different aspects.
Yes.
You know, and we've talked a lot about the financial considerations. Anahi, can you talk to non-financial considerations? Like, I guess the Zoom room would be one of them. But what are some of the things that, you know, once you do go through all these financial steps that you should be considering before buying?
Well, I think there are it's a two-pronged answer, really. Most of us, especially now with, you know, all the design shows, I think we all have dreams about what a house should look like, and, you know, the backsplash and the color palette and whatnot, but there's so many other serious considerations that we need to look at. And I think it's really doing a lifestyle checklist, if you would, rather than thinking just about what, you know, cozying up to a fireplace or having a beautiful garden. Think about what everyday life really is and what you need. So you create a list of musts, of things that you must have for daily living, and then you do a little bit more of a wish list. And by the way, I have them. I provide all of my people that come to me. So if anybody wants them, I'm happy to supply them. So that way you have an idea of things that you may not have thought about if you do a long list. And then the other part of it is really the location. If you're a city dweller, the country may seem very romantic, and you know, a beach home may sound great. But if you're used to going downstairs to get a cup of coffee at 2 a.m. And you're somewhere in the woods, that's not going to happen. So I think you need to have serious considerations about where you're going to live. And to echo what Veronica said, if you're serious about a location and it's not a location you're familiar with, I would even suggest that you not only spend time during weekends and weekdays, but that perhaps you even do an overnight stay or 2 days to really get a feel for what it's like to be a local, and you know, get a different sense of where is the supermarket, where, you know, you have medical needs that need to be tended to. Are there places nearby? All those things are important considerations when you're choosing a home.
These are really important things to think about. So as a realtor, what are some of the very, very first steps that you recommend for home buyers?
Okay, so it's not just as a realtor, it's having moved so many times. I can tell you that that definitely you want to be organized. I keep folders, whether you do virtual files or whether you keep a folder. You want to ask your realtor for suggestions on locations. Have them send you lists of homes that are available, perhaps even homes that have already sold. Keep them separately. Make sure you may be looking at a home today, and tomorrow you're looking at another 3 homes, and forget the ones you've already looked at. So, you know, be able to go back to what you've seen. And basically get as informed as you can, whether if you don't know the terminology, do things like this. Where you know where to look. But once you have a price point, then, and you have your list of how many bedrooms and how many bathrooms, and you've done the lifestyle check, then really start working with your agent to be able to look at places, whether virtually, at the beginning, and then actually visit physical locations to be able to really see, get a sense of what you're looking for. And I would also consider, it's normally, although 2020, there's not much normal about 2020, but normally it takes about 5 years to recoup the cost of purchasing a home. So if you have plans where you're a career change or expanding your family or downsizing or whatever it might be, you need to make sure that your long-term and short-term goals you look at before purchasing a home to make sure you're on the right track. And I think, as Neil said, not to get caught up in the romantic part of it, but to also make sure that you're practical about it as well.
Can I jump in for a second, Elizabeth? So I think that something that was said was really important, and I want to echo it, is the importance of the buyer getting comfortable where they're going to be purchasing. Sometimes I think that buyers have an expectation that their realtor has this crystal ball and can tell them, hey, you're going to love living here. And there's two things about that. Obviously, number one, the realtor does not have that. And number two, a lot of consumers may ask questions like, well, who else lives here? And things that, and I want the consumer to understand that realtor's not going to be able to answer that question. There are fair housing laws that really prohibit us as professionals from telling the consumer. It shouldn't matter. So the point is that the consumer should be comfortable. They should be comfortable, and they should spend a lot of time in that area, whether it's the city, whether it's the suburbs, making sure that they're comfortable where they're going to be living.
That's a really good piece to bring up, that, you certainly want to have professionals around you, but at the end of the day, you're the one who's going to be living there, and you want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence. And as Veronica said, part of the planning process. So Veronica, we were talking about looking for homes. Where and how should a first-time home buyer look when they're buying a home?
So a first-time home buyer has sometimes different priorities than somebody that is buying a home for a second time or a third time. Some people move later on because they need a bigger space, the kids, dogs, whatever it is. So the first-time home buyer's priorities are a little bit different. And so sometimes a first-time home buyer gets kind of stuck in that, oh, I want a beautiful kitchen, and I want, the definitely backyard with the swimming pool. So unfortunately, as a first-time home buyer, you may be limited to what you can buy, but it's not going to be your home forever. People move more than ever, and the times have passed where people buy their home and stay there for 30, 35 years. So there is programs definitely such as Sunny May, and there is other grant programs that help you buy that little ugly duckling in that neighborhood that needs a little bit of tender loving care. So they help you. And it's an amazing program, and it's geared to first-time home buyers. And again, first-time home buyers is somebody that hasn't owned a home in the last 3 years. So they qualify as a first-time home buyer. That's why sometimes these programs require you to show 3 years tax returns. That's the way that we verify that you haven't had any real estate ownership. There is some different guidelines if you're in the military, so that's a little bit more flexible. But again, these programs finance the repairs that this property may need. They'll finance siding, the windows, the kitchen, and it's going to be just one mortgage payment that you're going to have. So again, just make sure that you're working with somebody that is familiar with these grants. Sunny May, CHI, there's a lot of different grants programs out there, incentives. Some towns are giving you incentives to move into that town, and they'll give you a grant to move in. So as a first-time home buyer, sometimes you get kind of, disappointed because you can't find something that is in the range, the price range, but you could find something that needs a little bit of work, and that those programs will help you, and you can achieve that house that may have been on the market for quite some time because it needs all that work. So, and you can, basically dictate what kind of work you want, what kind of, kitchen and appliances and windows. So it's like you're designing that property at the same time. So a first-time home buyer should also inquire and work with somebody that is familiar with these grants.
If I can add to that as well, I mean, having bought my first 2-family house when I was 22, and I bought a second one, a 4-family house 2 years later, the idea of being able to help a first-time home buyer and provide them with all the options. It isn't just about, fancy homes and all of that. That's wonderful. But when you're a first-time home buyer, if you're really need options and you need your questions answered, make sure you work with somebody that really cares and will be there for you, whether or not you're buying $1 million home or you're just, buying a little place that needs TLC, as Veronica said. You need to be comfortable with the person you're working with.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, and for people to look out for that and think about who they're working with. And speaking about, it's a little bit kind of heart-centered, right? But Neil, you talk about, you want people to look for a property with your heart, but buy with your heads. Why should people do that? And you're saying it's such an emotional time. So how do we combine those?
Yeah, well, buying a house is truly, it's a wonderful experience, right? It's something that we all strive for. Shelter is so important, one of the most basic elements of our human needs. And so, and it's exciting. There's so much that goes into it, and it should be a wonderful experience. At the same time, you have to set reasonable expectations. So go and look with imagination and loving what you're doing. But at the same time, you do need to be realistic. So set those budgets. Speak to your mortgage person, because you don't want to get so caught up in it that you make bad decisions, that you stretch too far, because then what will be originally a love will become a burden. So I like the idea of going out there, with your heart to look, but then having that business element also in the back of your mind, knowing where you're going to stop, knowing what your needs are, I think is really important. And again, will avoid disappointment down the road. And I saw someone ask a question about, well, some people are saying you have to go all cash for, which means that you're not going to have a mortgage contingency. And well, if you have all the money in the bank, if it's $100,000 and you have 100,000, then you could do that. But if you need a mortgage, so be it. You need the mortgage, then maybe that property is not for you. And if it's meant to be, it will be. That's my philosophy. If these things are meant to be, it will work out for you.
I love that. I love that. Well, talking about about focusing on the head, Veronica, let's get down to nitty gritty. How do you come up with a down payment?
Well, I think you should first start looking under the mattress. You never know. You and you never know.
You forget where you put things. That's true.
There's some rich uncle that you forgot about. So yeah, down payment is not what it used to be. Everybody said, oh, I've got to save up 20% to put down. Where am I going to find this 20%? Those days are gone, gone, gone. Yes, ideally not to have mortgage insurance, you need to have 20%. But there is several programs out there that allow you to go even as low as 3%. So again, great programs. Your mortgage insurance is a little bit high. The less you put down, the more your mortgage insurance is going to be per month. But the down payment, don't forget, there is again those grants that help you with the down payment assistance. I keep on bringing up Sunny Mae because it's a great program for first-time home buyers, and Sunny Mae will help you with the repayment and the down payment assistance. So again, a lot of those grants out there are motivating you to use these grants. And that's the best kept secret out there, that a lot of people don't do their homework and don't know about these grants that can help you as a first-time home buyer. So yes, down payment, 3% in many cases. You have to have some closing costs, and obviously the closing cost are going to be dictated by the type of home that you're buying. So if you're buying a co-op, your closing costs are going to be minimum. If you're buying a 1 to 4 family home, the closing costs are going to be higher. Taxes, well, that's a big elephant in the room. So real estate taxes are the ones that you can't escape. Homeowner insurance, unfortunately, with all the floods and hurricanes and all kinds of things, homeowner insurance has got a little bit more expensive than what we used to. So again, working with somebody that budgeting, that it's going to help you, it's going to tell you exactly how much of a down payment, how much you're going to need for the closing cost. But again, remember that you don't need that 20% anymore. So a lot of people are buying with 3-5% down, and it's affordable. It is, with the interest rate so low. Come on, it's 3%, 2.75. It's a dream come true.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned mortgage insurance. Can you just talk a little bit about it, what it is and when it applies?
Sure. So mortgage insurance, so there's a different types of mortgage insurance. So for example, FHA, it's a program that it's available out there. And FHA requires you to have mortgage insurance up front and throughout the mortgage, and it never goes away. Not for everybody, but it's a program that helps some people that need that special program, which basically allows you to have low FICO scores, your credit scores. But a mortgage insurance is something that is dictated by how much you're going to put down and what are your credit scores. If you're putting down 3% down and your credit scores are 660, your mortgage insurance is going to be very high. So obviously that's something that you want to discuss with your mortgage consultant. What is going to be my mortgage insurance? How much is my mortgage insurance going to be? So ideally, if you could get your credit scores up, that's going to really help you with your mortgage insurance, because the mortgage insurance goes by tiers. So the better your credit score, the lower your mortgage insurance is going to be. And typically your mortgage insurance is going to be something that you're going to pay extra per month together with your principal and your interest and your escrows. That's going to be a part of your mortgage payment. And typically it can be canceled after 5 years. So there's different factors how the mortgage insurance, you can get rid of the mortgage insurance. You definitely can prepay the mortgage slowly but surely to get rid, to create equity. So that mortgage insurance is something that, again, you need to talk to your mortgage consultant to see how you're going to afford this mortgage insurance, because sometimes that mortgage insurance could be $300 per month. And that's a big chunk, when you're a first-time home buyer.
Really important things to think about. So, we found the neighborhood, we found the house, we have our mortgage, we did our planning, we're getting ready to go to closing. So Neil, what happens at the closing table?
Well, I'm going to talk pre-COVID, and let's hope that we get back to that real soon. So pre-COVID, you go to the closing, you sign documents, you hand over checks, you get keys, and there's lots of kisses and hugs. Now, and I'm really being serious about that, but there's a backstory to that, right? Because everything should happen before the closing. If you're working with a good team of professionals, they're going to have you set up. Everything is going to be done ahead of time so that truly you do just need to go to the closing and everything's worked out. So you're just going to sign those documents and it's going to be a good experience. It's going to be a happy experience. And so I say that a little bit tongue in cheek. Things always come up, but the truth of the matter is that really that's what the closing table is for. It's the idea that you get your keys, you hand over your checks, sign your documents, and there's lots of hugs and kisses, and it's a happy experience. And that's, so to that point though, don't be afraid to ask your professionals. We do this all the time, but there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I don't understand. Walk me through what's going to happen. Talk to your attorney. What are the things I'm going to need? Not the day before closing. What are the things I'm going to need all along? And so on. And I think that, so I really do believe in that. I don't go to a closing table unless everything is ready. We're just going to do those things.
So there must be some missteps. You said it sounds so smooth, but there must be some missteps that happen at closing. What are some of those that first-time home buyers make, and really how can we avoid them?
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of repeat myself, but I really feel, number one, again, work with professionals, right? I appreciate that your cousin is a divorce attorney, is going to give you a really good rate, but if they're not doing closings, then, and in a particular area, they don't know how to do a co-op closing, it's not worth it. So don't skimp when it comes to the professionals, right? We get paid, but again, this is probably the most expensive transaction you're going to be involved in. It's certainly one of the most emotional. So don't skimp. Don't assume that you know everything. At the same time, don't be afraid to say, I don't know, so please help me. That's what we're here for. Work with people that are going to help you through the process. Again, it should be a non-adversarial, happy experience. It should be a joyful experience. And to me, that's the most important thing. And then one other thing is, don't forget to make your mortgage payments after the closing and make them on time. You get caught up in everything and you forget to make that first mortgage payment. It's important that you do. It affects your credit. You want to make sure that that all of those things are kind of tied up and ready to go. So it's not only about the closing, it's about what's going to be after that, and being prepared to make your tax payments or make your mortgage payments, whatever the case may be. So that's really, that post-closing planning is also important as well.
Terrific advice, terrific advice. So I could talk with you all night, all of you. This is such great information, but I'd like to close before we jump to the questions, because we certainly have a lot of questions from attendees. I would love for each one of you to share kind of an insider tip, something that you share maybe with your friends, your family, on the home buying process. You want to kick that off for us, Veronica?
Sure. So from my point, I've got tons of tips and tons of stories. I could be here all night, but basically one of the things that people forget, it's more as a suggestion than a tip. We do run credit when we first start the application process. And I always tell them, but everybody listens, don't go and do anything crazy after that you start your mortgage process, because you're so happy you're going to go out and you're going to start buying appliances and you're going to start opening credit cards. That's going to affect your credit scores. Don't forget that we are going to check your credit prior to closing. And so many times we find these surprises. They forgot to pay a credit card during all this madness. They went out and got a new car and all these things. So try, please, when you start the process, we're going to run your credit. Just keep everything the same until you're closing. After you go to kneel and close on that property, then you can go and buy everything that you want. But please try and keep your credit report. Don't open any accounts, don't close any accounts. All that affects your credit scores. And we need those credit scores to stay up. So that's going to affect your pricing and your MI. So that's one of the little tips.
That's a great tip. That is a great tip. Anahi, what's your insider tip for everybody?
Well, I think of it as if you compare it to remove the stress a little bit. When you go on vacation, you start planning way ahead of time. You start looking at what location you want, whether you're going to the beach, whether you want to go hiking. You check airline rates. You check hotels to see what the rates are and what amenities they offer. And then you start thinking about the things you need to pack, right? You don't pack a bathing suit if you're going hiking. So it's sort of the same concept. Don't get caught up in the cosmetic things about the home purchasing journey. It should be a joyful journey. And I think the more that you surround yourself with a team and you prepare yourself and you know where you're at, it could be fun. But make sure that you do it in order and in a responsible manner, because it's a big deal. Home is shelter, is where your life happens. But it really could be a catalyst for a much better life in the future if you make the right financial decisions. So go about it with fun, but responsibly.
Great advice, great advice. Neil, what about you? What's your insight?
So I'm going to again repeat something I said earlier, which is you do all of this, plan and be prepared, and then trust the experience. But if it's truly meant to be, it will work out. If it's not, then there'll be another home. And I think you always have to approach it that way. Do the best you can, but there's always something else out there. And I think that takes off some of the edge. Because again, there is a lot of unknowing, a lot of things can come up. You can get outbid, inspection goes bad, things happen. There's always something else out there.
Really accept that there might be surprises and know that the right house for you is going to come together. That's great. A great way to think about it. Thank you so much. So I do have some wonderful questions from our attendees that I'd love to ask. And Neil, I have you now, so I'll ask this. What about closing costs? What are the kind of closing costs, and are they folded into your loan?
I'm glad you asked. So closing costs are the additional costs that you have to pay. Now, part of that depends on the type of property you're purchasing and where you're purchasing it. A co-op which is purchase of personal property, a stock and a lease, is different than purchasing a home, which is real property. So what I would recommend, and also where you purchase, the mortgage tax is different depending on the county that you're in. What I would recommend is, as you start to hone in on where you want to go to your attorney, go to your real estate person, mortgage person. We can prepare a mock closing statement for you, which can come really close so that you know exactly what your closing costs are going to be. Happy to do that. The professionals you engage should be happy to do that for you on day one. So again, if they don't want to do that for you, move on to someone else. So I can't tell you exactly what the closing costs are going to be right now because it varies depending on purchase price, property, location, but your professional should help you do that almost instantaneously.
Terrific. I have a question for Veronica. What is the difference between working with, an online mortgage company and working with Emigrant Mortgage and a professional?
I talked a little bit about that before. I mean, I have total respect for everybody in the industry. Everybody is professional, but unfortunately, there is some big companies that you call this 1-800 number and they give you this information and that person disappears. And so then now you moved on to somebody else. And then that person says, okay, well, this is not my department. You're going to talk to somebody else. I think that speaking to somebody from the beginning and having that coach person, that team feeling all throughout, I think it's very important. Emigrant Mortgage Company is not a very large company, but we are very team orientated, and that's important. I have a team of processors and helpers and underwriters. That's the beauty of working with somebody that is small. You're just not a number, So I think that the fact that that your comfort level, I mean, that's very important. That first conversation should kind of give you an idea. Yeah, this is the person that is going to help me. Go with your gut feeling. The interest rate is going to be pretty much the same, more or less, wherever you go. Closing costs should be more or less the same, but that feeling of somebody that is going to help you and is going to answer the phone and is going to email you the information, that changes from one company to another for sure.
And also some of the things you talked about too, some of those programs and grants, and you want someone who's going to be educated in that.
Yeah, not everybody has those programs.
Right. Also, another question about mortgages. I have a pre-approval, Joanne says. Should I initiate competition? And this is, I guess, more of an agent question. Should I initiate competition when when there's a bid accepted on a house? Anahi, what do you think?
I apologize. I had to mute myself because my dog was barking as I thought he might. I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question? I got distracted. I apologize.
Joanne said that she has a pre-approval and that there's a bid accepted on a house. Should she initiate competition? Is that possible? Do you recommend going ahead and doing that if there is a bid already on a house?
Well, sellers do continue to entertain offers even after they have an offer that's accepted. It gets a little complicated in that in some cases, sellers will want to continue to show the home because that deal may fall through. So you could always be there as a backup offer in case that particular offer doesn't work out. But, you know, I'm always a little wary about answering generalized questions because specific situations sometimes require different strategies. So I'm happy to answer additional questions later, but generally speaking, that does happen.
Okay.
And I would say, you know, if you have a pre-approval, go in strong. Go in strong. Why not? So
Right.
get that pre-approval. That says a lot to a seller that you're ready to go.
And on that, you know, how soon, someone is asking, Latoya wants to know, how soon should someone go ahead and look for that pre-qualified loan if they're planning on moving, let's say in 7 months? How far in advance do you recommend that people do that to get a pre-approval?
So, so pre-approval, there's different levels of a pre-approval. So you can start talking to a professional and saying, this is what I have now. These are the assets that I have now. This is how much I'm going to save. This is how much I want to put as a down payment. What do you think are the mortgage payments going to be? So you can verbally talk with somebody and get a feel of what your mortgage payments are going to be and if you qualify. If you want a pre-approval, you can start that. A pre-approval, the nice thing about a pre-approval is that half of the job is being done because that company has checked your income, has checked your assets, has checked your employment. You got what is called a commitment based on your information. The only thing you need to do is just go and buy a house and find a house. So the pre-approval could be good, and it's usually good for 3 to 6 months. So you can update that pre-approval. It's free. Nobody should be charging for pre-approvals. There's a big difference in between a pre-approval and a pre-qualification. Pre-qualification is just a piece of paper. A pre-approval is a commitment. Huge difference. Okay. So, and a pre-approval could last for a long time until you find that house. We just have to keep on updating periodically your assets and your pay stubs, you know, because we want to make sure, and unfortunately due to COVID, nothing has changed. But I recommend pre-approval if you're seriously looking to buy in the very near future. But if you're not ready, you can always talk to somebody to get a feel of what you should be doing.
Thank you. Those are some very important distinctions that you made. Anahi, someone wants to know, as a first-time Dara wants to know, as a first-time home buyer, can you help us understand what a buyer broker provides exactly?
Sure. So
I think some people see, you know, Zillow and all these other places, and they say, do I need a broker? So what does a broker do for you? Right.
Well, obviously there are people that are buying homes online. So if you have the wherewithal, I'm not going to be salesy and tell you not to do that. However, as Neil mentioned earlier, this is really your biggest investment. Or one of your biggest investments in a lifetime. So having somebody on your side that can advise you about pricing, location, negotiating strategies, being able to make sure that they have your interests represented in the process of looking for a home, or perhaps things that you may not be aware of when you're looking for a home. You know, it's a service that's very valuable, particularly in something that is as important as the purchase of a home. So
I think it's a really good point about having someone on your side that can look out for you, because we don't know what we don't know.
Right, exactly.
There's so many things that as professionals you can help us know. Let's see, what percentage, there's so many questions. What percentage of the home price should we put aside to cover the entire closing cost? Is it a percentage, Neil? Veronica, is it a percentage?
I mean, I've heard percentages used. I would prefer not to. Again, as I said, closing costs vary depending on the type of property, the location. I would sooner have you reach out and let me know what your price point is, where you're purchasing. We can then put together, you know, a kind of a mock closing statement, which gives you very close to what you're going to need to have put aside.
Okay, thank you. I know we're getting close to the end, but if you don't mind, maybe a couple more questions, if that's all right with our panelists. First of all, someone wants to know, are you all available to speak? And I do with them. And I do want to let them know that we will certainly be giving out your contact information so that you can have your questions answered and be able to dig deeper into your own personal situation. So I just wanted to confirm that with everybody for everyone who's here.
Sure.
Wonderful. We have a question about tax payments. Are they due quarterly or once a year?
It depends on where your location is again. So in Suffolk County, the taxes are different than Nassau County. If you're in the city, taxes are done differently there. So really it depends on where you are going to be purchasing. Some places in Nassau and Suffolk have villages as well. So it really varies from place to place.
Terrific. Well, I could stay here all night asking you all these questions because it's such great information, but we'll certainly provide to everybody. I want to respect your time and our attendees' time. There's just so many questions from first-time home buyers, and I want to thank you all for really giving our first-time home buyers a plan and a way to get started and the confidence to go ahead and do it, and the importance of working with professionals that know what they're doing. And we will certainly get out your contact information, and please, to the attendees, feel free to reach out. They can answer your questions more specifically. And I want to thank all the attendees for joining us this evening for this wonderful webinar. And if any of you want to have a parting word before we leave, please, Veronica, Anahi, Neil.
Please feel free. It's a really big deal to purchase a home. Ask questions. And if you're speaking with somebody that doesn't want to answer your questions, find someone else.
I agree. And obviously, everyone be safe.
Yes, absolutely. Of course.
Be safe and happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Happy holidays, everyone. Be safe, be healthy. Thank you for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you at a future webinar. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.